Entonces, después de este combate, una vez yo tenga el cinturón, después que se ponga en la cola, que es larga, así que a más de uno le brillan los ojos.
Do you think Ilia beats Charles then?
I think he might, to be honest. Charles is a bit chinny, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's had about 40 fights or something. He always gets punched. He always gets cracked.
Yeah.
He will have the two belts on top of his shoulder because he's still the lightweight champion. Islam, the pound for pound #1 king. You understand? He never lost his title.
The fight between Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev could not be made possible, but their rivalry is getting fired up with each passing day, as both fighters are dropping verbal bombs on each other. Ilia Topuria has made headlines now by saying Islam has to get in line if he wants to fight him after he becomes the champion in the lightweight division. Ilia Topuria has made it clear that Islam Makhachev has to get in line if he wants to fight him after he wins the lightweight title. Topuria said Makhachev has tried to act like he's in control from the start. He pointed out that Makhachev recently claimed moving up to welterweight wouldn't matter because he wouldn't give up the lightweight title. But according to Topuria, he didn't come to the division to ask for permission. He came to take charge. Topuria said he followed through on what he promised, not Makhachev. So once he has the belt, Makhachev will have to wait his turn.
Él respondió y dijo una última frase que era: consigo una victoria más y hablamos. No sé si eso te deja una puerta abierta que se pueda acabar dando el duelo contra Makhachev.
Es que sabes qué pasa, que él desde un principio se quiso dar una imagen como que él tuviera alguna decisión. Él dijo hace como una semana, mi subida a peso welter no va a importar porque no pienso dejar el título vacante. Lo recuerdas, ¿verdad?
Perfectamente.
Y yo había dicho antes de eso de que yo no había llegado a peso ligero para preguntarle nada a nadie, que yo era el que mandaba. Entonces, ¿quién se salió con la suya? ¿Quién hizo lo que dijo? Como siempre, él o yo. Entonces, después de este combate, una vez yo tenga el cinturón, después que se ponga en la cola, que es larga, así que a más de uno le brillan los ojos.
Ilia Topuria was already unhappy with Islam Makhachev's move to welterweight and called him a hypocrite. He reminded everyone that Makhachev once said he wanted to give opportunities to smaller fighters like him. But now that Ilia is asking for the same chance, Makhachev is moving up in weight and not returning the favor. Topuria said it's unfair for Makhachev to criticize him while doing the exact same thing, calling it the biggest example of hypocrisy he's ever seen.
Es el mayor hipócrita que yo haya visto jamás. A mí me decía que no me quería dar la oportunidad porque era el chico pequeño, y ahora el chico pequeño es él, que está buscando la misma oportunidad que yo estaba buscando. Entonces es como criticabas una decisión, una acción mía cuando tú estás ahora mismo haciendo lo mismo. Es como no he visto más hipocresía en mi vida, pero...
Ilia Topuria further warned Charles Oliveira that he has to pay the price now for Islam as he stepped up to take the fight. Makhachev declined. While he thanked Oliveira for accepting the challenge and showed respect for him, Topuria made it clear that he is focused on getting the job done. He also said that although Oliveira holds the UFC record for most submissions, he will aim to win in the way that causes the least harm, out of respect for Charles.
Bueno, en primer lugar agradecerle a Charles, la verdad, por haber aceptado el reto, ¿no? Algo que Islam no hizo y tiene que pagar el precio por Islam. La verdad, me da mucha pena por Charles, pero bueno, al final del día es mi trabajo.
Charles Oliveira tiene el mayor número de sumisiones en la UFC. Dijiste que querías someter a Makhachev, no sé si quieres doblar la apuesta con Oliveira y someterlo.
No sé, con Oliveira la verdad que lo que sea menos doloroso para él, eso es lo que haré porque me cae muy bien.
Moreover, Paddy Pimblett shared his thoughts about UFC 317. He thinks Ilia Topuria might beat Charles Oliveira. He pointed out that Charles has had around 40 fights and often gets hit, calling him a bit chinny. Pimblett noted that Oliveira is reckless, but also exciting and dangerous, especially on the ground. Pimblett emphasized that the weight difference between 145 and 155 pounds is significant and often underestimated by people who don't follow or understand the sport closely. He added that Oliveira is around his height, and in a stand-up fight, that size difference could play a big role.
Ilia beats Charles then?
I think he might, to be honest. Charles is a bit chinny, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's had about 40 fights or something. He always gets punched. He always gets cracked.
Yeah.
So,
he's reckless, but he's super exciting.
Yeah, he is.
And he's dangerous.
Exciting. If he gets him down, I can see him winning, because that 10 pounds difference is a big difference.
Yeah.
145 to 155, it's a big difference. People don't understand that because they don't watch the sport or they're not involved in the sport. But that £10 makes a big difference. And especially like Charles is like my height, Ilia's like down here when I stand up, you know what I mean? So it's gonna make a big difference. Like,
Paddy Pimblett said Ilia Topuria might get a bit of a shock when he stands across from someone like Charles Oliveira. He explained that fighters often react that way with him too, especially those who usually compete at lighter weights. Pimblett recalled a moment with Bobby Green, who looked at him and said, "He's big him." He also mentioned that people expected Michael Chandler to be bigger than him, but when they stood next to each other, it wasn't the case. Pimblett suggested that size and presence can surprise fighters when they finally
Ilia might get a bit of a fright at how big Charles is when he stands opposite him. Fighters do that with me, who fight at lightweight. You know what I mean? I'll never forget Bobby Green looking over at me and being like, "What? He's big him." Same with Chandler. Like people thought Chandler was going to be bigger than me, and he just weren't.
Aljamain Sterling warned Charles Oliveira about Ilia Topuria's power, saying it could be a bad night if Topuria finds his chin. He pointed out that Oliveira gets dropped in almost every fight and questioned how Topuria's striking power at 145 pounds will carry over to 155. Sterling believes that if Topuria lands clean shots like he usually does, it could end badly for Oliveira and lead to Topuria becoming a two-division. Aljamain Sterling stated, "Charles Oliveira gets dropped every fight. We know Ilia Topuria can already crack at 145. What is that power going to translate at 155? And if he can touch Charles the way he hits everybody else, I think it's a bad night, and Ilia is a two-division champion." Similarly, former UFC champion Michael Bisping described Ilia Topuria as very impressive in his career so far. He praised Ilia's confidence and how he has turned his dreams into reality. Bisping pointed out that Ilia has knocked out all his opponents with style and ease, rarely facing trouble in his fights. He highlighted that Ilia has been the one delivering damage, not taking it. Bisping believes that if Ilia beats Charles Oliveira, who he expects Ilia to be favored against, it would be another major accomplishment. He also made it clear he meant no disrespect to Oliveira.
I would say Ilia Topuria, given everything that he's done in the sport, the confidence that he's shown, the manifestation, as the kids say, but bringing it all to a reality, knocking out everyone in his way, doing it in absolute style, hardly breaking a sweat, not having to fight through any adversity, not being the hammer and the nail. He's just been the hammer, just hammering his way through everyone. If he beats Charles Oliveira, which I would assume that he's going to be the favourite to do, and that's with absolutely no disrespect towards Charles Oliveira.
However, Michael Bisping also responded to Topuria's comments about Islam Makhachev, admitting that Topuria talks a bit of trash. He pointed out the irony in Ilia accusing Islam of running away, even though Ilia only defended his featherweight belt once against Max Holloway before moving up, a move similar to Islam's but even faster. Bisping highlighted that there are still strong fighters in the featherweight division like Diego Lopez, Yair Rodriguez, and Movsar Evloev. He believes Ilia likely moved up because the weight cuts were too difficult, yet he is accusing Islam of avoiding him.
No, he's coming in refreshed, stronger, bigger. The punching power will be improved. The strength will be better. The cardio will be better without those nasty weight cuts. And of course, he goes up against Charles Oliveira, one of the most exciting fighters in the sport. But is that for the interim belt? Or is that for the undisputed belt? Because some people, they say that Islam should be stripped.
I think Dana should just do Dana stuff and just say, hey, Islam, if you don't want to fight, you're stripped.
Because some people that I work with, called Adam and Nick Pete from the Fight Disciples, I work with them on TNT Sports, they say that Islam should be stripped. Now, I think that's crazy, but they do raise some good points. When you look at the lightweight rankings, there is some people that he hasn't yet fought. I'm looking at them right now, of course. There's Arman Sarukian, he's number 1. There's Justin Gaethje, that's number 3. Max Holloway's number 4. There's Mateusz Gamrot. There's Paddy Pimblett. There's a lot of viable contenders.
Michael Bisping also commented on weight cuts, noting that just as Ilia Topuria struggled to make 145 pounds, Islam Makhachev has a hard time making 155. He has long believed that fighters should move up a weight class because it leads to better fights. Bisping pointed out that both Ilia and Islam are already moving up. He explained that cutting less weight allows fighters to perform at a higher pace, absorb punches better, gain more strength, and recover more effectively during training. He also thinks it would result in fewer injuries.
And you can't question the chin. okay? He took a tremendous amount of damage and still pushed forward. So if I'm Jack Della Maddalena, I've just beat Bilal Muhammad. Now a smaller version, Islam, wants to come up, that maybe isn't as clean as a striker as Jack, that does have great wrestling, but he just stopped most of Bilal's takedowns, and when he was taken down, he got back to his feet and put the pressure right back on straight away. The question is, does Islam even win that fight? And then does he come back down to 155? I don't think we should strip Islam Makhachev, but the conversation is out there. That narrative does exist. Some people are saying that online as well.
Ilia Topuria's coach, Jorge Clement, also said the biggest reason for Topuria's challenges was the weight cut. He explained that sometimes Ilia weighs around 85 kilograms, and they have to bring him down to 66 kilograms. Clement said it's a very big weight cut that takes a lot of effort and careful planning.
Sometimes I see Ilia in 85 kilos, and he needs to be 66. We do very big weight cut.
Chael Sonnen also weighed in on the difficulty of weight cutting in MMA, offering a bold take. He claimed that many of the sport's biggest names like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Georges St-Pierre chose to retire not because they were done competing, but because of the toll weight cutting took on their bodies.
The only reason you didn't get Khabib to 30-0 is you wanted to do it at 155 pounds. Khabib and everyone would have stuck around. Georges St-Pierre right on down the list. All the guys you've ever seen retire would have done one more if you would have let them go up in weight.
On the other hand, Islam Makhachev's coach, Javier Mendez, expressed confidence that Ilia Topuria will defeat Charles Oliveira at UFC 317. He mentioned that if he had to bet, he would put his money on Ilia to win the fight. While Mendez wasn't completely sure whether the victory would come by knockout or decision, he felt confident in Topuria's overall ability to come out on top. Interestingly, Mendez also revealed that personally, he wants Oliveira to win because of his respect for the fighter. However, when it comes to predicting the outcome and placing bets, Mendez believes Ilia has the edge in this matchup.
Ilia.
By knockout?
I don't know, but I would if someone gave me $100,000 but if you're asking me who I would want to win, I'll put Charles. I'll put my money on Charles.
Yeah, that's who you'd want.
Yeah, so that's who I'd want.
Yeah.
But if you'd give me 100 to make 100, if it's that type of even, like you get 100, you can make 100, I would put Ilia.
Yeah.
He feels he cannot be beaten.
Javier Mendez explained why he believes Ilia Topuria will beat Charles Oliveira in their upcoming fight. He pointed to Ilia's strong inside boxing and his ability to land clean, powerful shots as key advantages. Mendez noted that Charles often stands upright, making him an easier target for Topuria's precise strikes. He added that Oliveira will struggle to take Ilia down unless he can use knees or front kicks effectively up the middle. While Mendez acknowledged that Charles has the reach and kicking skills to cause problems, he believes Ilia has more ways to secure a victory in the fight.
It's basically because Charles is going to stand in there upright, like you're saying, and when he gets inside, he's going to use that boxing, and Charles' head's going to be up, and Ilia's got a really good way of connecting with that chin on the inside. Really, really nice, just like what he did with Volk, and I think if Charles doesn't get him up the middle with knees or front kicks up the middle, he's going to have a hard time with his boxing against him, and he's going to have a hell of a time trying to take him down. So it's going to be one of those where Ilia's got more opportunities than Charles does. But Charles can surprise us with his length, and up the middle would be really, really well suited for him. And the kicks too, body, head type thing, low, high, he could do really well with that.
MMA analyst Luke Thomas said the best fight possible would be Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. Even though that matchup isn't happening, he finds the Topuria versus Oliveira fight for the lightweight title very exciting. Thomas described the fight as fire and said he doesn't care what others think about it. He also showed interest in Islam's move up to welterweight, eager to see how he matches up against fighters like Jack Della Maddalena, Sean Brady, Khamzat Chimaev, and others. Overall, Thomas believes both options promise great and thrilling fights for fans.
I've been very consistent about this. The number one fight that could have been made among all permutations was Islam-Ilia. That's the best fight that could have been made. But the point I've been trying to make is that while that would be the most desirable one to choose, it's not like you're getting something bad even though you're not getting it. In other words, Topuria against Oliveira for the lightweight belt is fire. I don't care what anybody else says. It's fire. And then I've been saying this whole time, Islam going up to 170 and seeing how he matches up there with De La Maddalena, potentially Brady, potentially Rachmanov, potentially Gary, potentially Buckley. I mean, any number of ways in which that could go. That is incredibly exciting.
Meanwhile, Javier Mendez also discussed the possibility of a fight between Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev, saying it would be a very tough matchup. He explained that since Ilia is moving up from featherweight, the fight doesn't give Islam much of an advantage, but if the UFC decides to make it happen, they will. Mendez described Ilia as very tough and compared him to Alexander Volkanovski. He highlighted Ilia's excellent technical boxing, calling it probably the best in the division, which makes him a difficult opponent to prepare for.
How do you see that one playing out?
That one is, again, that's a super tough fight, just because Ilia, he's coming as a featherweight and fighting Islam, for me, it doesn't really benefit Islam to fight him, but if that's what the UFC is going to do, that's what they're going to do. But he's so tough, so tough. I mean, he's doing all the right things, what he's saying, how he's saying it, but I see him as a tough challenge. He's to me like a Volkanovski type, super tough. So you have to prepare for him. And the thing that's different about him is he has really good boxing. I've said it that I think he has the best boxing in the whole division, and technical. I'm not saying striking, but boxing on a technical boxing level, he's pretty damn good.
Former UFC champion Robert Whittaker believes the big question right now is how Islam Makhachev will perform in the welterweight division. He compared Islam's move up to Ilia Topuria's, noting that everyone wants to see how they handle the higher weight. Whittaker explained that Islam's weight cut was very difficult, but he is very strong for his division. This strength should help him at welterweight, where the weight cut may be easier and he could even gain more size. Still, it remains uncertain and fans are eager to see how Islam will do at 170 pounds.
What do you think Islam will look like when he moves up to welterweight? Because I hear cutting the weight for him was never the easiest. Do you think it could kind of have a similar effect to you where he might even be able to perform a little bit better a weight class up?
Maybe. It's I guess that's the $1 million question. That's the question everybody's asking. And that's kind of the question. It's the same situation as Topuria as well. How good is Topuria? But what's he going to look like upper weight division? Same with Islam. By all reports, though, the weight cut was really hard for him, like really hard. He's super strong for that weight division, which must translate well to moving up, making it a little bit easy cut. Maybe he gets a little bigger. It's I'm very. That's the $1 million question. Everybody's asking the same thing.
Former English mixed martial artist Dan Hardy expressed his thoughts about Islam versus JDM fight and said he isn't sure how long JDM will keep the belt, but he doesn't think Makhachev will be the one to take it from him. He stressed that Makhachev is very dominant at lightweight and could beat anyone there, including Ilia Topuria. However, Hardy isn't confident that Islam would have the same success if he moves up to welterweight.
I think De La Maddalena's got a bright future. I don't know whether he's going to hold the belt or, he's going to lose it to another one of the top contenders and then pick it back up again. I don't think he's going to lose it to Makhachev, though. I think Makhachev holds the lightweight belt against anybody in the world, on any day, including Ilia Topuria. I don't think if he moved up, he would have much success against Makhachev.
Dan Hardy believes that if Islam Makhachev wins the welterweight title, it will solidify his legacy and place him among MMA's all-time greats. Hardy already considers Islam the current pound-for-pound best. He also thinks the welterweight division is wide open right now, making it the perfect time for Islam to move up and make history.
If Islam goes up to welterweight and wins that second belt, what do you think that does for him in terms of his legacy? Surely that just puts him on the Mount Rushmore, right, of MMA?
I mean, it does for me. He's pound for pound best right now, anyway. In my mind, it would be very, very impressive. He is the kind of fighter that can definitely make that transition. And honestly, I do feel like the welterweight division is open right now for someone to come in and cause an upset. There's been times in the past where it would have been harder for someone to come up from another weight class and do that, but now seems like it's primed. It's a little bit unsettled. The belt's kind of moving around a bit.
MMA broadcaster Aaron Bronstater also expressed his excitement for the upcoming fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight title. He said it would be a thrilling fight because both fighters are known for finishing their opponents. Bronstater highlighted how dominant Topuria has been recently, especially in his fights against Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. He also noted that Oliveira is very dangerous and has a wide range of skills. With this fight, Topuria has a chance to become a two-division UFC champion, and Bronstater is eager to see how it plays out.
Ilia Topuria will face Charles Oliveira for the now vacant lightweight championship. That fight should just be an absolute banger of a fight because you got two guys with incredibly high finishing rates. We've seen what Ilia's done to his recent opponents in Volkanovski and Holloway, and Charles Oliveira, so dangerous, so versatile in terms of what he brings to the table. I can't wait to see that one. And now Ilia will have the chance to become a two-division champion.
With the lightweight title up for grabs at UFC 317, Ilia Topuria's rise is stirring up plenty of excitement and tension in the division. Topuria is ready to claim his spot at the top, and he's making it known that anyone wanting a shot at him will have to get in line. Whether it's his power, skill, or unwavering mindset, the upcoming showdown with Charles Oliveira promises to be a defining moment for Topuria's career and the lightweight division as a whole.